Whew. I just finished getting the boats ready in between the rain and the wind, and you can see the water is pretty darn high. I think we're not out of the woods yet, but I think we're going to be pretty good with a dahlia. So if you follow my channel, I did do a video on how to tie your boats up to prepare for a storm, but I videotaped that after the storm. And because I had a bunch of boats in the canal here piled up against my boats, I needed my lines to help pull them away. And I kind of showed you kind of a halfway job, right? Because I had already started to take some of it apart. Well, what I thought I'd do in this video is just show you everything about how I tied up my boats and my lifts to prepare for this storm. And I'll share with you, you got to kind of wrap your mind around, you don't want the lift to move, but you want the boats to be able to move up and down, but not forward, backward, or side to side. So once you wrap your mind around that concept, this will make a lot of sense. And there's got to be more ways to do this. This is just the way that I did it. So if you see anything that you have a comment on or you think could be done better, leave it in the comments, because God knows I'm going to have the opportunity to do this again, and any feedback is welcome. But if you're completely in the dark, or you just want somebody else's perspective of what worked, I'll show you what worked for me. So let me flip the camera around. I'll show you how I did this. Okay, like I said, you got to wrap your mind around the lifts can't move, the boats need to go up and down, but you don't want them going sideways or backwards and forwards. All the pictures that you saw of people's bows in the water and it leaning against the lift, or stern in the water leaning against the lift, that's because they didn't tie them up right. So let's start with the lifts. I did raise this one. There's a override switch in the lift controller where you can get it higher. Normally we have this plank lined up with the dock. This boat is longer than my dock, so we built this staircase that goes up and down with the lift to get back there. If you're looking for an idea, this has worked amazing. I can get my 98-year-old grandmother on this boat. It's really, really handy. Anyway, I bought these from Amazon, 2.5 inch for the bigger lift. 2 inch and 1.5 inch for the smaller. And you just want this style. I don't know why I bought two different sizes, but you want this style here that has these hooks. It's more of a trucker kind of flatbed thing. And this is the obvious reason why you want that. You can just hook them on the side, and you can see over here, I hooked them right here. And what you want to do is put all 4 on loosely, not so loose they fall in the water or the little hook falls off, but snug. And then go around and snug all 4 corners a little bit at a time until you get it pretty tight. You can see I put my foot on here. It's not going anywhere. I can shake this and it's very stable. It's not moving. Not moving at all. So now that I have the lifts stable, they're not going to float, they're metal, and the wind is not going to blow them around. Then turn your attention to the boats, and let's do the flats boat first. This one has a center bow cleat and a center stern cleat, and that's it. Some flats boats have cleats on the side and midship cleats. This one does not, so I had to improvise. And what I did was tie 2 lines to each piling, and you can see I came up pretty high because these boats, the water was up to here. So if you look, the boat was floating about 2 feet off the lift at least. And what this does is it gives, you can see, enough room for the boat to come up. But this isn't going to do much to keep the boat from going forward and backwards. It's going to keep the boat from going sideways. And then these supports for the lift actually do a pretty good job of that also. Now, because I chose not to tie off to these pilings, and I tied way back here, all this is doing is preventing this boat from going forward. That's it. You can see the distance between here and here. The boat could go backwards this distance times 2. That's why I have this spring line, and that's attached along with everything else to this center cleat, which if that failed, that would be bad. But this will keep the boat from going backwards. So you can see these two keep the boat from going side to side. These two keep the boat from going forward and a little bit side to side, mostly these. And then this one keeps the boat from going backwards. So it seems to me, and during Ian, this worked beautifully. Boat came up, moved around a little bit. It probably went backwards about a foot, went forwards about a foot, and then rested right on the lift, and I didn't have any problem. This is 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines. On the bigger boat, I've got 6 lines, and I only have 6 lines because this is a 35 footer and I used it as a spring line in both directions, and then I used another one on the other side. The bow cleat I've tied off to the piling in the same way at about the same height, and I only wrapped this many times so I didn't end up with a very big end to whip around. You could have more of an end and do some fancy braid if you wanted. I just kept wrapping, and I have at least 3 of these loops per line. Then I wrapped another line, a 35 footer. These are 1/2 inch, by the way. These are 3/8. I went up into this cleat and I cleated it off, and then took this tail end down and wrapped it again 3 times. And then I ran this line over to the stern cleat. So this is going to keep the boat from going side to side. This is going to keep the boat from going forwards and backwards. And because these are so far back, they're not going to do much to help the bow not go forwards and backwards, but they will do a little bit, especially if the boat starts floating, because if the boat starts floating, all these lines get shorter and everything gets tighter because you're going up, right? Well, they don't get shorter, they get tighter, you know what I mean? On the other side, I did exactly the same thing. We've got 1 line from here to the piling. We've got this gray line because I had to go buy these last minute at West Marine. They had them in stock, ready to go. I did a BOPUS order, buy online, pick up in store. My wife picked it up on her way home from work. That worked out really nicely. But it's the same program. And then this little short one over to the stern cleat. And this will keep the boat from going forward and backwards. And the rest of them keep the boat from going side to side. The whole time allowing it to go up and down. So for this, it's 6 lines, but I'm using 1 line as 2 lines because of the way that I tied it off. I had enough length, and those pilings are close enough together. So that's really it. That's all there is to it. It's really not all that difficult. And like I said, if you see something that you would do differently, please drop it in the comments, because I'd like to know. Always open to new ideas. During a more serious storm, I would remove the bimini, I would remove my seats, and I would remove these canopies. But this one is headed north. I feel really bad for those folks, and I will be checking on them throughout the night and into tomorrow, but this is just my experience here. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you found some value in this video. Please subscribe, and see you next time.